Hello, everybody. My name is Gaelynn Lee, and I am a violinist, singer-songwriter from Duluth, Minnesota, which is located on the traditional, ancestral, and contemporary lands of the Ojibwe people. My pronouns are she, her, and I am, for a visual description, a small white woman. I use an electric wheelchair. I'm wearing a blue dress. I have dark brown hair that's pulled up with a blue flower clip, and I am sitting in my kitchen. I am a musician and I've been playing for 27 years, but in 2016 I won NPR Music's Tiny Desk contest. Since then I have recorded several albums. I have toured all over the US and internationally, and I do a lot of public speaking about disability awareness. Right now I'm working on the soundtrack for a Broadway production of Macbeth, and I'm also heavily involved with Ramped, which I co-founded with Lachi. Ramped stands for Recording Artists and Music Professionals with Disabilities, and our mission is to be a resource that elevates disability culture, promotes inclusion in the arts, and advocates for accessibility in the music industry. Our goal is to kind of remove the negative energy that surrounds the word disability so that we can celebrate disability culture. We believe that disability is a natural form of human diversity that can be supported and celebrated. And in the arts, especially in music, we are resilient, we are creative, we're adaptable, we have unique, singular sounds, and we contribute to the music culture in a way that hasn't been promoted enough in the mainstream. So we feel that to ignore disability in our culture results in a sort of social discrimination. So our goal is to put disability culture front and center, to support these artists that are working in the field that maybe haven't gotten the recognition or the access needs that they need to really thrive, to support those artists and to educate people about just the amazing work that we're doing in the community. So this video is a partnership with Women in Music and Ramped. And first of all, I just want to thank Women in Music for making this conversation possible. It's being made in honor of International Day of Persons with Disabilities, which is on December 3rd. It's the annual observance of the International Day of Disabled Persons. It was proclaimed in 1992 by the United Nations General Assembly Resolution 47/3, and it aims to promote the rights and well-being of people with disabilities in all spheres of society. So we're making this video because we want to discuss accessibility in the music industry and how folks that are connected with women in music can get involved. I would love to welcome Rebecca Sampson of the record label Blonde Records. So feel free to come on camera, Rebecca. Sweet. I am very excited that she is joining me today for this video. As a native Nashvilleian, Rebecca's life has been steeped in the sounds of Music City. Now she's hoping to disrupt the entertainment industry by creating a safe space for artist development, career enhancement, and artistic vision with Blonde Records. So welcome, Rebecca. Thank you so much for being part of this awesome chat today. I wanted to have you introduce yourself in your own words. So how about it?
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Gaelynn, and Women in Music. It's an honor to be here talking about this. I'm Rebecca Autumn Sansom, founder of Blonde Records and the Wavy Awards. I'm a white cis woman with rose gold highlights and mostly long brown hair, and I'm wearing a blue and pink floral bomber jacket. My pronouns are she, her, and I identify as a relinquished person, like I said at the Wavies, which means I'm also an adoptee rights advocate. Ithaca, New York is where I'm talking to you from today, and that is the traditional homelands of the the Cayuga Nation, and they are members of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, which was here before New York State and the United States of America. I was asked what I want people to take away from Blonde and the Wavies yesterday, and I thought it was like a great way to start this conversation because I was able to think about that and come up with this answer. So Gaelynn, let me know what you think.
Yeah.
I want people to look at what we're doing and think it's about damn time we diversify mainstream talent and commit to equitability.
That's
Is that
awesome.
a good
Yeah,
answer?
so accurate. I mean, and kind of
Right?
explain. Can you explain like a little bit because people don't know probably what were the Wavy Awards and like because it was such a powerful experience to watch them. But in case people here haven't heard of what they are, your
Yeah, we'll
record
back
label is
up.
kind of committed to that same diversity, but the Wavy Awards is a very public way to show what you're about, right? So yeah.
Yes, yes. So with Blonde Records, we did a music news show last year, and we did it every single week for 52 weeks in a row. That was my crazy goal, and we did it. Lachi was the featured artist one week, and that's how we met. And then with the Wavy's idea was to bring that community and do like a live event and highlight kind of historically excluded talent that the show's all about and my roster is all about. So we did that, and I saw that Ramped, y'all started, you haven't officially launched, which also blows my mind, but that was like in August that I saw Ramped was a thing. And that was deep into planning the Wavies. So we partnered then, and we really took it to an access level that I hadn't thought of. And it was amazing to work with you, Gaelynn, and Andrea Jennings and Lachi on creating a really inclusive, accessible space that turned out pretty well. We had no idea
Yeah.
what to expect, but with your help, I think the response just says that this is needed. It's time. Like, let's go.
And it's possible, right? Like you're an
Yeah, it
awards
wasn't.
show, like that's what you guys had with the Wavy Awards, kind of like the Grammys or any other award show. But because of the partnership with Ramped and your willingness to think outside the mainstream box, I guess, you had captioning and ASL and visual descriptions, which ended up just creating. I mean, even for the artists that weren't disabled, I feel it ended up creating like such a welcoming environment and just such a celebratory vibe because people knew that no one was being like left out or put upon, like, so you had a wheelchair accessible venue of course too, and so I'm excited that you guys did such a killer job with that um early because we already had a suggestion from the A2IM, which is the American Association of Independent Musicians, that they want to duplicate those kind of results. At their award show, we're trying to talk to the Recording Academy about making the Grammys similarly accessible, but you guys are like the pioneers, which is really cool to be like, hey, it's not that hard. You just have to think about it, right? And I assume you got into Blonde Records sort of for the same reason with a lot of multiple marginalized people. But I want to know for you, I mean, I don't know if you identify as disabled yourself, but what kind of things are you trying to accomplish specific to disability with Blonde Records? Like, do you have any goals of like how accessibility, besides just the Wavy Awards, could look at your record label or like inclusion? Like, what are your goals for that?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. And honestly, I've been thinking about that more because like I said, I do identify as a relinquished person. And then in the adoptee community, people have floated that, like, should adoptees qualify as having a disability because of separation trauma? And that does,
Oh,
it's proven it like changes your brain,
mm-hmm.
mother loss as a baby. So that's interesting. And if that, I don't know, I can see that like being, not having access to your medical records can affect your health and does for adoptees. And I think that if people really think about disability and how broad that can be, that way more of us could identify and then become more empathetic for sure. But just knowing more people and seeing artists always makes people more empathetic. So I am excited about being in this lane and being an advocate for sure. one of Ramp's members, Precious Perez, is going to be on the news next week as our featured artist.
Yay!
Yeah. And yeah, I'm excited to work together with you going forward.
Cool. Yeah, no, I'm excited to have you kind of on the team working to promote. I mean, I would love to see, record labels all across the country, kind of asking the artists what they need to thrive, like including disabled artists on purpose, but then not just for PR, like actually saying, okay, so we want you on the roster. What would you need that you're not getting in the mainstream industry? And I think a label like yours is a really good place to like show that that too is possible. So I'm excited about all the work you guys are doing, and yeah, I guess maybe we'll bring in Lise Aed for talking to us about her vision of accessibility, and also she's going to perform for us at the end of this session. So, AD, why don't you introduce yourself? Well, first I'll introduce you a little bit here. Um, Aoede is a multi-award winning San Francisco based artist. She's a playwright, filmmaker, and author who has struggled with and thrived with a rare chronic illness for 13 plus years while obsessively creating to heal. She makes records and unique full-length fantasy musicals on audiobook that she adapts to musical theater stage plays. So you do a lot. I'm going to let you introduce yourself with your visual description and stuff, but I would love to know kind of your perspective on access, because we have different disabilities. My access needs are very like obvious with an electric wheelchair, but I would love to hear your take on access too, and what you want to see happen in your lifetime for accessibility in the music industry. So take it away.
Great questions. Thank you, Gaelynn. Thank you, Women in Music. I'm Lise, or Aoede is my artist name. I'm a white woman with long, curly, reddish brown hair. I'm wearing blue glasses, a flower in my hair, and a blue dress with bright colored flowers. And my pronouns are she, her. And I am on Ohlone ancestral land because I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. And Gaelynn, you did a really nice job of capturing that I wear a ton of hats. In addition, I feel like one of those hats is also disabled artist advocate, and I'll explain that a little bit. But I've been battling a rare chronic illness called dermatomyositis. It's a muscle weakness disease that impacts my mobility, my strength, my stamina, energy for more than 13 and a half. Where I was in the hospital for about a month, lost all use of my muscles, and then had to relearn how to stand, sit, walk, and then eventually sing and play again. And so that was obviously a big transformation, but it also resulted in me kind of being homebound due to health for many years before COVID. And so because of that, I had to really think about how to keep that songwriter's dream alive, right? And try to find new ways to have identity and purpose, especially, as a disabled artist. So at the heart of my mission, I've found our empowerment, healing, and creativity. And so besides these other artistic hats, I feel like my perspective is actually to basically help give a voice to other disabled artists and also those in the chronic illness community. So I am trying to include them in my projects. For example, I did a virtual summit in 2020 where I filmed more than 60 different experts and was able to then share that on a tech platform for people with chronic illness and disabilities to help them thrive. In 2020, I also, during the pandemic, created an audiobook where I was able to work with people who are disabled on my projects, and to also, as well as the album cover artist. So I'm kind of really focused on changing that stigma and the perception of what disabled artists can. And then I'm also adapting that to a theater because I do musical theater and I want to cast disabled actors. I also want to make it accessible online once I do a recording, because my community can't often go to live theater. So, it's a big issue and I want to be respectful of access. That's one of the things. But my challenges, to be honest, are a couple of barriers. And those barriers are things like education to making online events accessible fully. So if we had better understanding of what really accessible, whether it's intake, platforms that tell people, oh, I need additional accommodations as an example, that would be really helpful. And other barriers for me, particular, are grant funding for artists. So, for example, rather than me spending my funds to implement these big musical projects, to be able to have access to disability grant funding for artists. And then another one, believe it or not, is I'm homebound. And so part of the issue is I'm literally not at these venues and theaters and organizations live. So if there are workshops, conferences, events, opportunities, I feel like I'm missing that and competing with other able artists who are able to go there. Those are a couple of those. And then what I want to see, I'd say in my lifetime, is removing all the barriers to access. So in essence, I look at that as attitudinal, which is what I'm already trying to do. Organizational and systemic. So things like the fact that I can't get to a conference is actually preventing me from fully participating. So in a future scenario, full participation, right? And services and systems and policies that are in place to encourage those with disabilities to participate. That's one. What Gaelynn spoke to, which is architectural and physical elements. So in the design of our buildings, we've already accounted for the fact that both as an audience member and as a performer, we can get into these venues and places. And then also on the tech side, like I do so much online that I'm really sensitive to the needs of people with sensory disabilities. So in this case, seeing and hearing and, even learning disabilities, and accommodating all of that, whether it's, captioning as we talk about in transcripts and assistive devices, etc. So as that moves forward. But like Gaelynn says, I think the key for me is actually just having the disabled artists and music professionals be seen, elevated, and celebrated for who we are. And that honestly, in a future, we are automatically included in these music industry conversations about these policies and practices that impact us, because we're part of it. We're already that's already part ingrained into our culture, and it's part of our norms, just like ethnicity and race and gender are. It's the diversity of disability. The diversity of disability is celebrated. And my last thing is that the music industry cares. And Gaelynn, you were kind of pointing this out to me as well, as like, it's not just checking a box on DEI. It's actually achieving real visibility and inclusion of disabled artists and music professionals across the board.
I could not agree with all of those statements more, so thank you for sharing. I was thinking about this. Somebody asked me, one thing they heard, which I think is true about the pandemic, is that online events made things temporarily or like coincidentally more accessible to disabled people. So they're like, is that where you want to see things going? And I said, my true desire for like the future of the way we do events is like the hybrid model, because I don't think we should be like, oh, if disabled people can go online, then they don't need to go in person. So we'll just hold it and do it the same way we've always done it and just have an online component. I think that's kind of a cop out, because I think it's important to make sure your venues are accessible and that you have those things in place to like include people in person. But I do think that the hybrid event does make it more accessible, not just to people like you, which I think is really important, but like as we age, as people have kids, I think all the things that benefit disabled people and make it more accessible ultimately expand accessibility for everyone. So like that should be the new norm, is like, what's the most accessible format we can make, because it just includes disabled people, it includes people with chronic illness, but it also includes people in different phases of their life where, I don't know, there's a lot of things I did over the pandemic that I probably wouldn't have taken the time to go and do in person. but I like enriched myself because it was available online. So I'm curious, in the chronic illness community, are you excited about the future of like hybrid events? I mean, because I think you don't want to be excluded based on tech, but you also want to have the option to go when you're able to, right? I would assume like having the both elements is important.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I think just being able to be sensitive to the different spectrum of needs is what it's about. So as long as, yes, we can still make hybrid events, absolutely, because there are things that we really do get when we're in person, and the kinds of connections that we make that I feel are very valuable, and allow for community when we're not, doing this kind of virtual community. So yeah, definitely for
Cool. Well, I'm excited, Aoede, to have you play a song. So we're gonna get out of the camera so that you are center stage, and then we'll wrap it up after that. So, what are you performing for us today?
So, some years ago, a fan who was bedridden and also battling a debilitating muscle disease, and he was in constant need of breathing support, he reached out to me. And despite his illness, he found joy in activities and hobbies like ship spotting from his bed, which he did with this loving care of a wife that took photos for him. And when I heard his story, it moved me. And perfect day, imagining the world through his lens. But afterward, I realized it wasn't just his journey I was lamenting, it was my own. Because it was actually the first time I let myself acknowledge my own limitations and feel in song what I had gone through. I feel so alive. I feel so alive. Can you see? Can you see me? Do you know? Do you know what I would do? I would do with just one perfect day. I would shed my skin. This thin veneer, it keeps me here, keeps me wanting more than this. And I feel so alive. And I feel so alive. Do you see? Do you see me? Can you paint a picture for me? Picture perfect blue sky, sunny day. Paint the trees, apple green. Make me believe these leaves are real, green leaves are falling. One perfect day, and I feel so alive. I could skip around the sun, climb the cloud to the moon. Ooh, and I feel so alive on just one perfect day with you. Can you see? Can you see me? Do you know? Do you know what I dream of? I dream of breathing easy. One perfect day. See the ship, it glides, and I catch a ride into the sunset. One perfect day, and I feel so alive. And I feel so alive. Can you see? Do you see me? Can you show me city life? Pretty life made easy. One perfect day. Paint the you.
Oh, yay. Thank you so much, Aoede. I really appreciate you coming and playing and talking with me today. So thank you for being here, and thanks
And
to
thank you for having me.
Women in Music too. Yeah, thanks. Sweet. Well, I guess I'll just wrap it up real quick. This video is, of course, directed to women in music members, and you might be wondering, what can you do as a member of Women in Music to make the arts more accessible, to make music more welcoming to people with different disabilities and chronic illnesses. And so there's a few. I'm going to do a little checklist of things that you can do in your own careers, whether you're a musician or a booking agent or a label. First of all, only support accessible venues. As an artist or as a concert goer, if a venue is not accessible, it is leaving out 1 in 4 people in America that have a disability. So make that a priority. And if a venue is not accessible, and you wanted to go see that artist, send a note and be like, "This is why I'm not attending." It's a bold ask, but honestly, this is the choice that's forced on many people with disabilities regularly, just because we don't have a choice. So you can help choose with your dollars what you support. Normalize access requests. Consider making an access rider for your shows. Whether or not you have a disability, it's something that you can turn in with your stage plot when you're planning a show. Just say, "I do not need any additional access requests." Or if you have a disability, this is the place where you can start asking for the things you need. Maybe you need help loading in your gear. Maybe you need a chair on stage. Maybe you need a ramp to the stage. That's an access rider. And if we normalize that across the music industry, it becomes easier for people with disabilities to speak up and get what they need. So we're all a part of the solution. Include access information or the lack thereof in all event materials and promo. So whenever you're playing a show, make sure you're writing whether or not the venue is accessible on everything, on the calendar, on the poster. If the venue is not accessible, still put that on there, because I can't tell you how much extra energy disabled people spend trying to dig deeper and figure out if they'll be able to be accommodated at the venue. If you have ASL or captioning at your shows, please put that on the posters too. Anything that you're doing, if you're having a live stream available, just make all that access information really easy to find on all the promotional materials. When you're doing shows, include things like visual descriptions, include things like captions and ASL. I personally have gotten grant funding to do captioning at my shows, so even though it's not a cost that always is super attainable to the independent artist, there are ways around that. So consider getting grants to do ASL at a big show that you have coming up. Use alt text in your pictures and captions in your videos. Alt text is a little visual description that you write in your Instagram or Twitter or Facebook picture. Captions on your videos are things you can add yourself. And then Zoom, for example, has captioning automatically now. So the other thing is diversify your roster from the green room to the boardroom. If you're a venue owner, if you're a record label, look and see where is disability being represented. And if it's not, try to make a point to figure out how to get more disabled artists the attention and the support that they need. Make a point to seek out, support, and amplify disabled artists. I think it's inspiring that Aoede is hiring disabled people to do work with her. I try to do that on the road as well, have disabled artists open for me. There's ways to make sure that disabled artists are getting opportunities just by making it part of your diversity mission. And then most importantly, join Ramped. Go to ramped.org, rampd.org, and take our brief intake survey, and be sure to opt into the newsletter, because that's where you'll hear about our event updates and other initiatives. So thank you again to Women in Music, and happy International Day of Persons with Disabilities.